Alone in the dark, Elira ran through the empty hallway of the broken alien ship. Lights flickered above her and the floor shook under her feet. Her heart beat fast and her breath came in short gasps. She was scared. She was alone. The ship was silent now except for the distant sound of metal creaking. Everything was broken. Her people, the Varel, were all gone. They had tried to fight, but it was useless. Something had come aboard. Something powerful and cruel. She pressed her small body into a corner and listened. Her long ears twitched at every sound. Somewhere in the darkness, the creature was hunting. It didn't speak. It didn't feel. It just killed. Elira whispered to herself in her own language, but even her voice sounded strange now. There was no one left to answer her. She moved slowly, her soft feet making no sound on the cold metal floor. She had to find a way out, or at least a safe place to hide. After turning 2 corners, she saw a heavy door, half open, sparks coming from its control panel. Inside, it was dark, maybe too dark, but she had no choice. She slipped in and froze, her eyes adjusted to the shadows. There were metal pods lined up against the wall. Most were broken. Some had old bones inside, but one pod was still closed. Its light blinked red, still active. Strange symbols were written on the side. Not Varel language. She stepped closer. Her fingers traced the letters. UNS. Cryo Unit 17A, a cryopod. Human, Elira gasped. Humans were dangerous. That's what her elders had always said. They were wild, violent creatures. They destroyed worlds. But she had never seen one in real life. The pod hissed. She jumped back. Steam poured out. The pod was opening. Elira's hand reached for her energy knife, only to find it gone, lost during her escape. She backed away slowly. A tall figure stepped out of the pod. His skin was pale from the cold, muscles stiff. He wore a torn black uniform with a faded Earth emblem on the shoulder. He blinked at her, confused, weak, but alert. "Who the hell are you?" he asked, voice rough and tired. Elira didn't answer. She couldn't. She didn't know his language. The man looked around quickly, then down at himself. Cryo. Damn, how long was I out? He saw her again, her blue skin, her glowing eyes. "You're not from my crew," he said. Elira stepped back again, her hands shaking. The man raised his hands, showing he had no weapon. "Wait, I'm not going to hurt you." She didn't understand the words, but she understood the tone. Calm, careful, not a threat. A sudden crash echoed from the hallway. Both of them turned their heads toward the sound. "What the hell was that?" the man asked, moving toward the door. Elira quickly shook her head. She held up 2 fingers, then made a slashing motion across her throat. The man stared. "You're saying danger?" She nodded. He took a deep breath and looked at the open pod. "Guess it's not a dream then." They stood in silence for a moment. 2 strangers, 2 enemies maybe, but now both trapped in the same nightmare. He looked at her again. "I'm Captain Rain Carter, Earth Forces." He tapped his chest. "Rain." Elira didn't move. He pointed at her. "You?" After a pause, she placed her hand on her chest. "Elira," she said softly. He smiled just a little. "Elira. Okay, we'll work with that." The hallway behind them groaned again. Something was getting closer. Elira turned and began to move. She stopped and looked back at him. She pointed. "Follow me." Rain nodded. They moved into the dark together. Behind them, the shadows moved too. Something was following. Something hungry. The enemy of my enemy. The emergency lights blinked red. Each flash lit the hallway for a second, then swallowed it again in darkness. Cold mist floated along the ground. Above them, pipes groaned and dripped like the ship itself was bleeding. Elira moved first, quiet, fast, confident in the shadows. Her steps were light. She knew the ship well. Rain followed behind, heavier, slower, his boots echoing with every step. He cursed under his breath every time a pipe hissed or the floor creaked. They hadn't spoken since they left the cryo room. Not that they could speak much. The only words they understood were each other's names. But danger? That was a language both of them understood. We need to find weapons, Rain whispered to himself. Or a map. Or a miracle. He glanced at Elira. She stopped beside a half-melted door and turned to him. Her glowing eyes met his. She placed 2 fingers to her lips, then pointed down the corridor. Quiet. Yeah. Got it, he muttered. They slipped into an old control room. The door had been clawed open. Strange black marks stretched across the walls like burned scars. Something had torn through here, and not long ago, screens flickered with static. One of them still worked, showing a looping camera feed from different parts of the ship. Rain stepped closer. He stared at the screen. Something large moved across the hallway in camera 4. Not walking, crawling, fast. Skin like armor, limbs long and twisted. What the hell is that? Elira saw it too. She stiffened. Her hand tightened on the small, sharp tool she carried. You've seen this before? Rain asked, pointing at the screen. Elira nodded slowly. Her voice was quiet and shaking. The Devourer. Rain didn't know the word, but her tone said enough. He turned back to the monitor. The thing was gone now. Just an empty hallway. The camera flickered, then died. He backed away. Okay, that thing's real. And it's hunting. Elira crouched beside a storage locker and pulled it open. Inside were some old tools, cutters, cables, and one strange device that hummed faintly. She picked it up and offered it to Rain. He stared at it. What is this? She pressed a button. A small electric pulse sparked from the end. Rain smiled. Stun baton, close enough. He took it and gave her a nod. Thanks. For a moment there was silence again. Not heavy, not awkward. Just quiet understanding. Then, from somewhere above them, came a low, rumbling growl. It wasn't mechanical. It was alive. Elira froze. Rain looked up at the ceiling. Vents. Move, he whispered. Now. They rushed out. The corridor split left and right. Elira paused, deciding fast. She pointed left. Rain followed without argument. As they ran, the lights above them shattered one by one. Pop. Pop. Pop, it was coming. They reached a sealed door. Elira entered a code, hands shaking. Nothing happened. Rain stepped forward and slammed his shoulder into it. Come on, come on. The door clicked and opened just enough. They squeezed through. Inside was an old escape pod bay. All the pods had been launched, except one. It was broken, sparks flying from its engine. They were trapped again. Rain leaned against the wall, breathing hard. This thing, it killed your crew? Elira nodded. Her eyes were wet, but no tears fell. And you're the last? He asked softly. She hesitated, then nodded again. Rain sat down. For the first time, he really looked at her. Not as an alien, not as an enemy, just a survivor, like him. I lost my squad too, he said. War zone, New Haven station, ambush. I made it out, but they didn't. Elira didn't understand the words, but the pain in his voice, she felt that. It was familiar. She sat down beside him. For a moment, 2 different worlds shared silence. Then the door behind them shook violently. Boom. Dust fell from the ceiling. Boom. The creature was there, just behind the door. Rain stood, grip tightening on the baton. No weapons, no armor, no backup, he muttered. Story of my life. He looked at Elira. If we fight, we die. She raised her chin. Her voice was quiet but strong. Then, we make it bleed. Rain didn't know what she said, but he smiled anyway. Hell yeah, now you're talking. The door buckled inward. One more hit and it would break. Rain raised the stun baton. Elira crouched beside him, her strange device glowing in her hand. They stood together, enemies by birth, allies by fate. And behind the door, death waited. What makes a human? The door bent in the middle with a loud, sharp crack. One more hit and it would fall. Dust filled the air. Wires above sparked and flickered. The creature outside snarled, a low, guttural sound that rattled the walls. Elira's hands trembled around her weapon. Rain glanced at her. "You ready?" he asked, knowing she wouldn't understand. But her eyes said enough. She was scared. So was he. But neither moved back. The door burst open. A black blur exploded into the room. Fast. Too fast. It hit Rain first, sending him flying against the wall. Pain shot through his ribs and everything blurred for a moment. Elira screamed. She dodged as the creature lunged toward her. It was huge. 8 limbs, armored skin, a head like a blade, and eyes that glowed red in the dark. She stabbed it with her tool. Sparks flew. The creature shrieked but didn't stop. Rain got up, dizzy, bleeding. He gripped the baton tight and ran toward the beast. Crack, he struck its leg. The current stunned it for a second. It turned toward him, roaring. Claws slashed across his shoulder. He fell again, blood dripping down his arm. Elira jumped on its back, stabbing again and again. This time, the creature shrieked and slammed itself against the wall, throwing her off. She hit the floor hard. Didn't move. Rain's vision blurred. The creature moved toward her. "No," he growled. He pushed through the pain and ran at it, screaming. He drove the baton into its eye with all his strength. It screeched and thrashed, then it fled, crawling through a ceiling vent, leaving behind smoke and black blood. The silence returned, broken only by Rain's gasping breath. He crawled to Elira. "Come on, don't die on me now." He checked her pulse. "Still there, weak but there." "You're tougher than you look," he whispered. He carried her to the side, set her down gently, and leaned against the wall. The pain in his chest told him a rib or two was broken. Maybe more. "Great," he muttered. Some rescue mission this turned out to be. Elira woke a few minutes later. She groaned softly, sat up, and saw Rain holding his side. He was pale, shaking, but still alive. She reached toward him slowly, then stopped. He smiled weakly. "Yeah, I'm fine. Just a few broken bones, nothing serious." She didn't understand, but she could see the blood, the wound. Elira pulled something from her belt, a tiny silver capsule. She opened it and poured glowing blue dust on his shoulder. It burned at first, but then the pain faded. "Thanks," he said, surprised. She nodded. Then she pointed at the exit. They had to keep moving. But as they walked through the dark halls again, Elira kept looking at him, watching him limp, bleeding, yet still moving forward. In her world, when someone was wounded, they stopped. They gave up. The Varel believed in logic, not suffering. Survival, not sacrifice. But this human, he kept going. He smiled even when he was dying. He fought for her even when she was a stranger. And something inside her began to change. They reached an old rest chamber. Rain collapsed onto a broken seat and leaned back. "Okay, we need a new plan." Elira sat beside him. She pulled out a small projection device and activated it. A glowing image appeared in the air. Her planet, her people, her family. Rain stared at it. "Is that home?" She nodded. Then the projection changed. Her people running, screaming, the devourer attacking, her mother pulling her into a pod, locking the door, whispering goodbye. Rain's face hardened. "You saw it kill everything you loved," he said softly. Elira looked down. He reached into his own pocket, pulling out a worn photo of 4 people, him, 2 women, and an older man. "This was my crew," he said. "We got caught in a crossfire 2 years ago. I was the only one who made it out." Elira didn't understand the words, but she understood. The pain. They both sat there side by side. Broken. Grieving, but not alone anymore. "You want to know what makes us human?" Rain said, almost to himself. "It's not strength, it's not speed, it's not even brains." He looked at her. "It's this. Right here. The fact that we keep going. No matter what we lose. We keep fighting. For each other. Elira stared at him. Slowly, she placed her hand over his heart. His voice dropped to a whisper. That's what makes us human. Suddenly, the ship's intercom crackled to life. Warning. Reactor core unstable. Meltdown in 72 hours. They both looked up. Rain laughed bitterly. Well, guess we've got a deadline. Elira stood. She picked up her tool. And for the first time, she said something in English. Fight. Together. Rain smiled. Damn right. Beneath. The skin the reactor warning repeated in a cold robotic voice. Meltdown in 72 hours. Evacuation required. Meltdown in 72 hours. Evacuation required. Rain stared at the blinking red console. The ship's core, half alive, half decaying, was heating up faster than expected. Maybe it was damage from the creature, or maybe just time. Either way, the end was coming. Elira leaned over the screen, eyes narrow, reading the alien symbols, dancing across the interface. She spoke her native language sharp and fast, frustrated. Rain didn't understand, but he got the feeling she was saying something like, "This is very, very bad. What happens when it blows?" he asked. She pointed at the display, then drew a large circle with her hands. Big? He guessed. She nodded once. Rain sighed and rubbed the back of his neck. Awesome, so we're trapped on a floating bomb with a space demon and no backup. He leaned back in the chair and closed his eyes for a moment. Classic human luck. Elira walked to the far corner of the room where a broken panel hung off the wall. Behind it was a hidden compartment. She pulled something out, a silver orb, with strange glowing lines across it. Rain raised an eyebrow. What's that? She held it up. Beacon, she said. Rain stood, alert. You had an emergency beacon this whole time? She nodded, then added, damaged, of course. She placed it on the console and began adjusting the crystal wires inside. Rain moved beside her, helping where he could. The machine was alien, but some parts looked familiar. Wires, power cells, signal coils. Engineering didn't care about species. It cared about logic. Minutes passed in silence. Outside, deep in the metal corridors, the devourer moved. They could hear it sometimes, scratching, sniffing, crawling through the vents like death itself. Rain glanced at Elira. If we send this, someone might come? She paused, then nodded slowly. Rain stared at the orb, then the countdown on the screen. Hours. And if no one comes? Elira didn't speak. She didn't have to. He understood. They had one shot. Later, they found a sealed med lab. Inside, the lights still worked. Rain took the chance to clean and wrap his wounds. He moved slower now. Pain in his chest, maybe more than just broken ribs. Elira watched him from across the room, sitting on the floor, holding the beacon in her lap. Finally, she spoke. Why? Fight? She asked, her voice unsure but clear. Rain blinked. What do you mean? She tapped her heart. You hurt. Still fight. Not run. He chuckled softly. Because that's what we do. We fight when it matters. She shook her head. Not smart. He smiled. Nope. Not smart. Just human. Elira tilted her head. Your people all like you? Rain's smile faded a little. He looked down. Not all, but enough of us. Enough to make a difference. Silence filled the space again. The kind of silence that came before a question that hurts. Elira finally asked, if no help comes, what you do? He didn't look at her. Instead, he stood and walked to a nearby terminal. He powered it on and showed her a section of the ship near the engine core. There, a manual override, a self-destruct. He pointed. If no help comes, I destroy the ship. And the thing with it, Elira's face turned pale. You die. Yeah. She stood quickly. No. I stop it. Rain shook his head. You can't. The override is inside the blast zone. Once activated, no one walks. Out. She stared at him in horror. You choose death? He looked at her. Sometimes. Dying for others is what makes life mean something. Elira backed away, her eyes filled with something like fear, not of the devourer, but of him. Not because he was a killer, but because he was willing to die to protect her. They worked on the beacon all night. The creature moved closer. They could feel it now, breathing behind the walls, waiting, watching. Sometime, during the quiet hours, Elira sat beside Rain and whispered, "My people, we leave those who cannot walk." Logic. Rain looked at her. "We don't." "Why?" He answered without thinking. "Because sometimes the weak are the ones worth saving." She didn't speak after that, but she didn't leave his side either. The next morning, if it could be called that in deep space, and the beacon pulsed, signal sent. Rain's heart jumped. Someone might hear that. But Elira's eyes narrowed. She looked at the console, her voice turned cold. Signal. Weak. Rain stepped forward. How weak? She paused. Need to boost. From core. Rain froze. The core? The place we're trying to not die in? She nodded. Rain cursed under his breath. He leaned on the console, jaw tight. They had a choice. Boost the signal, but risk death, or stay hidden, and let no one ever find them. Elira placed her hand on his arm. I go. He turned sharply. No way. You hurt. I go. Rain grabbed her shoulder gently. No. You live. You've got a future. Your people need a voice. I'm just a soldier. She stared at him, eyes wide. She didn't speak for a long time. Finally, her voice broke. You are not just a soldier. She placed her forehead against his. You are the first human who showed me something stronger than fear. Rain's throat tightened. He stepped back and picked up his gear. Then let's give them something to hear. They headed to the core room, the Devourer's nest. The final battle was coming, and this time, they weren't just running. They were choosing to fight, not for survival, but for something deeper, for sacrifice, for hope, for the kind of power that lives beneath the skin, the last stand. The core chamber was buried deep inside the dying ship, past rusted doors, dark maintenance, shafts and vents that breathed like lungs. The temperature rose with every step. Not just heat from the failing reactor, but the heat of something alive down here. Rain wiped sweat from his brow. His wound had opened again, bleeding slowly through the bandage. His left leg dragged slightly, but he kept going. Elira walked ahead of him. More silent now, more focused. Her movements were sharp, clean, efficient, military almost. In her hand she held a modified device they'd built together, made from parts scavenged across the ship. It was a beacon booster and a bomb. We get to the core, Rain said, voice low. Plug this thing in, give it a minute, then run. Like hell. Elira looked back, nodded once, but neither of them really believed they'd both be running. The core chamber was a massive open cylinder, 20 meters across. Molten energy pulsed through shattered pipes. Metal walkways twisted, like bones. It wasn't just a room, it was a nest now. Black slime covered the walls. Bones, armor pieces, bits of machine, and things that used to breathe were fused into the walls. A strange sound filled the air, a clicking, wet, rhythmic sound, like a heartbeat, or a clock. Time was running out. Let's get this done, Rain whispered. They moved onto the upper platform. Elira dropped to one knee and opened the power node. She plugged the booster in. Lights flickered on the device. 60 seconds. Across the room, the clicking stopped. Then, silence. Rain's gut twisted. It knows, he said. A scream split the chamber. Metal against metal. Claws across steel, ancient and full of hate. From the ceiling, it dropped. The devourer. Huge. Evolved. Faster now. Angry. It didn't crawl this time. It charged. Rain stepped forward. Go! He shouted. Illyra didn't argue. She ran for the opposite stairs. The beacon was still charging. They needed 60 seconds. She'd buy them that if she had to. The devourer slammed into Rain. He flew back, hit a wall, rolled, and got up again, limping, coughing blood, but alive. He raised the modified baton. Come on then, you ugly bastard! The creature screeched and rushed him again. Rain ducked, rolled, and stabbed its leg with the electric baton. The shock made it stumble. Yeah, you feel that? The devourer turned, eyes glowing. It grabbed Rain by the arm and flung him like a rag doll across the chamber. Bones cracked. Rain didn't get up this time. Illyra screamed from across the room. Rain! He didn't move. The creature turned toward her now. 40 seconds left. Illyra looked down at her device, then at the devourer. She stood tall. You want to end me? She said softly. Come and try. She ran. Not away, but toward it. It rushed at her. She leaped sideways at the last moment, slid across the floor, and slashed its side with a sharp tool. Black blood sprayed the wall. It howled. 20 seconds. Rain coughed, then laughed. She learned that from me, he pushed himself up. Pain everywhere, blood in his mouth, but his heart still beat. He looked at the backup control switch near the center of the core. A last-ditch override. He limped toward it. Illyra jumped onto a hanging chain and swung herself around the devourer's back. It slammed into walls, trying to throw her off. She held tight, stabbing again and again. 5 seconds. Now, she yelled. Rain reached the override. The devourer looked at him, just as Illyra stabbed deep into its neck. Rain hit the switch. The beacon burst to life. Stronger, louder, clearer. A full system distress call. The creature roared, blinded, shaking, convulsing. Then, a new alarm filled the chamber. Core destabilized. Meltdown in 15 minutes. Rain collapsed beside the console. Illyra ran to him, breathing hard, cut, and burned but alive. We did it, she said. He nodded, barely conscious. Help. We'll come. We go now, she said. He didn't move. She pulled on him. Get up. Can't, he whispered. Go without me. Illyra's voice cracked. No. You have to. You're the witness now. I stay. Illyra. His voice faded. Don't make this pointless. She shook her head. You said, humanity is not strength. It is heart. She placed his arm over her shoulders. Then I be human today. They moved together through the crumbling hallways as the ship collapsed. Behind them, fire, sparks, explosions, time running out. Finally, they reached the emergency airlock. The backup shuttle, a rusted piece of junk, waited for them. They fell inside. Illyra hit the launch. 10 seconds. Rain was barely breathing now. The shuttle launched into space just as the ship exploded behind them. A flower of light in the cold, dark sky. The shockwave hit. Systems fried. The shuttle spun out, tumbling. Inside, Illyra held Rain's hand. His eyes opened slightly. You made it, he whispered. No, she said. We made it. Hope echoes. The escape shuttle drifted, half dead, in the silence of space. Its engines were offline. Lights flickered, oxygen was dropping. No one spoke inside, not because there was nothing to say, but because there was too much. Illyra sat beside Rain's motionless body, her hand wrapped around his. His skin was cold. His breath came in shallow gasps, each one weaker than the last. Outside the window, the wreckage of the alien vessel floated like shattered bones across the stars. The explosion had ripped it apart. The devourer was gone. The threat was over, but the price had been high. Please, Illyra whispered, voice trembling. Stay. She wasn't sure who she was praying to. Her people didn't believe in gods. They believed in logic, calculation, control, but humans were different. They believed in hope. And so, she tried. "You showed me who they are," she whispered, brushing hair from Rain's face. "Now you show me how they survive." She tapped the emergency signal again. The beacon blinked, then went dark. Signal lost. No response. Her heart sank. Alira stood slowly, stumbling to the main console. She slammed her fist into it, rage boiling inside her. No. But it didn't help. Power was almost gone. Rain had saved her, taught her, fought beside her. And now, he was dying. And she couldn't do anything. She slumped against the wall, tears slipping down her face silently. Was this the end? But space is a strange place. Sometimes it listens. Far away, in a patrol ship on the edge of neutral territory, a junior communication officer yawned in boredom until a faint fractured signal crackled through. Unknown cell distress, repeat, On board, need immediate evac. His eyes widened. Sir, I think we've got something. Inside the drifting shuttle, the air was thin. Alira was lightheaded now, dizzy. Her movements slowed. She sat beside Rain again and rested her head on his chest. Do humans fear death? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. His eyelids twitched. Barely. No, he croaked. Alira froze. He was still in there. We fight it, like everything else, he added weakly. She smiled, for the first time in hours. Then fight now. She gripped his hand tighter. You are not allowed to go. Not yet. A flash lit up the darkness outside. Not a star. Not debris. A ship. Inside the patrol vessel, Ascendant Hope, Captain Silva stared at the broken escape pod on their radar. Human ID confirmed, she asked. Yes, ma'am. One human. One unknown life form. Same location. Launch recovery team. Now. Alira blinked, vision fading. She heard metal against metal, tools, footsteps, voices. The airlock opened, light flooded in, hands grabbed her. She's alive. We've got one alien survivor, someone else called out. The human's critical. We need medical now. She reached toward Rain, her voice barely a whisper. Don't leave me. His fingers twitched, just enough to touch hers. Then everything went dark. She woke in a clean room. White walls, soft lights, air that smelled sterile. Earth tech. She sat up quickly. Machines beeped nearby. Rain was in the next bed. Wires on his chest, tubes in his arms. Pale. Silent. Alive. Barely. The door opened. A human woman in a dark uniform stepped in. Short gray hair, eyes like steel. You're lucky, she said. You were in deep space in a scrap bucket, breathing air that would kill most species. Alira nodded slowly. We sent beacon. The woman raised an eyebrow. You speak our language? Learning, Alira said softly. Who are you? Alira stood. I am Alira of the Varel. I've never heard of your people. Most humans have not. What happened to the ship? Alira's face turned hard. Destroyed. Infected. One survivor. Me. The captain looked toward Rain, and, him? Alira's voice cracked. He is why I lived. He showed me what your kind really is. The captain folded her arms. What did he show you? Alira turned to the window. Earth was visible now, small, blue, spinning slowly in the black. She spoke not just with words, but with meaning. He showed me pain and courage, fear and kindness, weakness and power. He bled for a stranger, smiled in darkness, stood between me and death, again and again. She turned to the captain, eyes glowing not with alien light, but with human will. He showed me hope. Silence hung in the room. Finally, the captain said, Then you've met a real human. Later that night, Alira stood alone beside Rain's bed. His breathing had stabilized. Not safe yet, but out of danger. She placed a hand over his heart. You saved me. Now, I'll save them. She turned and walked to the door. A new voice called from the hallway. Ambassador Elira, the council is ready to speak with you. She nodded. No longer a refugee, no longer a frightened alien. She was a bridge now, between two species, and she carried inside her the one thing that could change everything. Hope, echoing through every breath, every scar, every heartbeat that refused to stop. Human, after all. The council chamber was massive, built deep beneath the United Earth headquarters in New Geneva. The walls were smooth obsidian. The ceiling showed a projection of the stars. In the center, a raised platform lit with a single beam of white light. Elira stood there alone. Above her, holograms of Earth's top leaders floated silently. Politicians, military commanders, scientists. Their expressions were cold, calculating. The first human she had ever met was in a coma, just a floor below them. And now, she was here, the alien girl who had walked out of fire and void with a message no one wanted to believe. State your purpose, one of the voices echoed. Elira didn't flinch. I come to speak for two worlds, she said. Mine is gone, yours still breathes, and I have seen the power that lives inside your kind. A murmur passed through the chamber. You're a survivor, not a witness, another voice said. Why should we trust you? She raised her chin. Because when death came for me, your kind didn't run. One of your soldiers stayed, even when he was bleeding, even when he had no reason to care. They didn't respond, so she stepped forward, voice rising. My people feared humans. We believed you were wild, cruel, violent. Are we not? Someone asked. Elira paused, then answered carefully. Yes, sometimes. But not only that. Humans are not just destroyers. They are protectors, dreamers. They don't fight because they hate. They fight because they believe something is worth saving. The room was quiet now. She looked up at the stars above. And that is your true power. Below the chamber, Rain stirred in his hospital bed. Monitors beeped gently. His fingers twitched, a nurse noticed. He's waking up. Doctors rushed in. Hope filled the room like sunlight through a crack in steel. Above, Elira continued. The creature we faced. The devourer. It is not the only one. There are more. It was a scout. Your enemies are not just from above, but from deep beneath forgotten space. A general spoke sharply. And you suggest we, unite, prepare? Elira's eyes narrowed. I suggest you listen, because war is coming, and you won't survive it with weapons alone. She touched her chest. You'll need something else. What? She stepped fully into the light. The thing you taught me. Pause. Then, to fight not because we must, but because we refuse to fall. Hours later, Rain opened his eyes fully. The first thing he saw was her. Elira stood beside his bed, dressed in a long coat with the symbol of Earth's peace fleet across her shoulder. You made it, he whispered. She smiled. You taught me how. We win? No, she said softly. But we live. And that's the first victory. In the weeks that followed, the galaxy changed. Elira became the first non-human ambassador to the Human Alliance. She spoke before star systems, told her story, told his story, not about battles or weapons, but about courage, sacrifice, and a heartbeat that refused to quit. Rain recovered slowly. Though he never went back to war, he became a teacher, training new soldiers not how to fight, but why. One evening, Elira stood on a hill above Earth's ocean. The sun was setting. Golden light touched the waves. She picked up a handful of dirt, soft, warm, alive, something her homeworld would never feel again. But here, she had found more than survival. She had found meaning. Behind her, Rain walked slowly, leaning slightly on a cane. Still weird? He asked. She looked at him. Earth? Or you? Both. She smiled. Yes, but good weird. He laughed. You've changed, you know. You changed me. She paused, then added, and maybe I changed you. He nodded. Maybe. Together they watched the horizon. Above them, new ships flew across the sky, bearing the flag of unity. The future was uncertain, but it was theirs now. Not just a human future, not just alien. Something new. Born from ashes, tested in battle, held together by the simplest, hardest truth, that in the face of fear, humans don't break. They rise, and so did she. She had been a stranger, a survivor, an outsider, but now, she was something else. Human after all.